Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be working on my Austrian pine. If you look at the tree right now, it's really thick and dense with needles, and light has a hard job getting from the top of the tree down to the lower branches. I recently thinned out this tree. The branches were getting too fan-shaped. They were getting too wide and ridiculous looking. So I thinned them down, trying to get a leader to each branch, making them a little more compact. And after that, it was kind of in a growing phase. I fertilized it in spring to get vigor into the tree. So my needles are really long at the moment for two reasons. One, because I reduced the number of growing tips on the branches. And the second reason is I fertilized it fairly heavily over the summer. So it was in what I call a growing phase. This year I'm going to begin more of a refinement phase, getting back buds on all the branches. To get good back budding on pines, you need to get light to all areas of the branches, and then you'll find that dormant buds will start popping out on the branches. You also need the tree to be really healthy and vigorous. And my tree is really healthy and vigorous at the moment. And all I have to do now is get light down to all parts of the branches. Let me show you what it looks like from overhead. Here is an overhead shot of the tree. So you can see, not much light is getting down to those lower branches. It's all very thick and dense up top here. So I've got to thin all this so light can pass through the upper branches and get down to these lower ones. The lower branches are slightly longer, so the outsides of the branches will get light, but the interior of the branches won't, because it's all shaded out by this needle density up top. So a lot of thinning is what I need to do today. Here is a look at a typical branch on a pine, and you'll see that there's a lot of needles on the underside of the branches, and you can also see they're down here in the shade. So they don't get a lot of sunlight in the shade down here, so they're not contributing to putting much energy back in the tree. So they're kind of inefficient needles. So when I'm thinning the needles on a branch, these are the first ones I take off, the ones that are on the underside. It helps thin the branch, and it doesn't really diminish the vigor of the tree very much. I've sharpened my scissors with a stone, so they're nice and sharp. So I'm going to begin removing all the lower needles from all the branches on the whole tree. This operation will take quite a while, so I'll be cutting the needles off rather than pulling them. Pulling the needles off of the tree works for most of them, but I find there's always one that kind of, you pull it, like let's pull this one, and it kind of, instead of breaking off, sometimes they tear back and you maybe lose some buds on your tree. Let's try pulling this one. That one pulled off nicely too. So instead of pulling them, I come in with the scissors and I just cut the needle off close to the base, leaving a little bit of a stub here. Here's another one. I'll just cut it off. This is a 2-needle pine, so every space on the branch has 2 needles coming out. Every node, or every, I don't know what they're called. So I'm just pruning off these lower needles. I'll work away pruning all the lower needles off the branches, and then we'll come back and see what change it's made in the needle density, so how much light can get through the branches. I think this operation will take me probably about an hour. So here I go. I have finished clearing the lower needles off the lowest branches. So I think if you come underneath here now, you can see the branches are fairly clean of needles underneath. So in nature, an Austrian pine would never grow to this density because, I'm using bonsai techniques. So another important reason to thin the needles like this is for air circulation. When a tree is really dense like this, air has a hard time getting through here, and you may get like fungal issues with your pines and that. So thinning them out is definitely good for the health of the tree. Gets air circulation in here and light, which are two factors that really help stop fungal infections. So I'll keep working my way up. You can see, these branches are clean underneath, and these ones are all messy, or they have needles drooping down. So you can see between these two branches there's hardly any separation. So I've got needles coming up, needles coming down, and there's just no space between the branches for air to circulate. I'm still working away, removing all the lower needles from the branches, so you can see I'm starting to get more branch separation on the tree. I still have a long way to go. I think I underestimated my time too. I think I've been at it an hour now, and I'm probably 60% done. So the only needles I won't touch are on my sacrifice leaders. I have 2 of them here. They'll just be left to grow wild, and that's to help thicken up the whole tree. I'm also kind of removing a lot of the old, brown needles as I go. Needles that have fallen down and got trapped in the branches. I can also see that I've got a few places I need to prune. So that'll be interesting. I'll have to do a little pruning just to get some of my branches shaped a little better. But that'll be coming. At the moment on the tree, I have a lot of discrepancy in needle length. If you look here, you can see the needles are, the size of the tip of my finger. Really, really nice. That's the kind of needle size you want on the tree, is that size. But if we come over here, some of these vigorous branches, you can see, the needles are the length of my finger. So that will equalize. The reason they're different lengths is because I did a lot of pruning on the branches. So all the vigor went into some branch tips and not others. So you can see there's quite a difference in needle size on the tree. So that's something to work towards, is getting an even needle size all over the tree, and that'll come with time. I'm making good progress on thinning the underside of the branches. Now this leads me to my next phase of this operation. On these lower branches, they're parallel or drooping down slightly, so it's easy to identify the needles that are on the underside of the branch. But as you go up in the canopy, the branches start getting more vertical. So these vertical ones, there's no underside to the branch, so you've just got to thin the needles down, leaving only a few needles at the tip of each branch. I'll show you a close-up of that. Here is a branch tip on the lower branches, and you can see at each tip I've got needles from here all the way back to here. I only want to keep a few needles at the tip of my branch, so I'm going to prune all the needles that are back further, like back here. I'm going to prune those away. So this one, and this one. Only leaving a few needles at the tip. That also thins the branch out and gets more light and air circulation to this branch. There's a few more I can take off here. This one here. So now you can see the tip here. I've got 1, 2, maybe 3 pairs of needles at the tip. And that's all I need for that, to keep it continuing to grow really nicely. Now you can see there's a candle forming at the tip here. That will be the next phase of this operation, is addressing buds, pruning and buds. So I'm still in the needle thinning operation. So that's what I'll be doing. On these upper branches, I'll be, not removing the lower needles, but I'll be thinning them back so there's only a few needles at the tip of each branch. I said that I won't be thinning the needles on my sacrifice branches. However, I will be removing some of the older needles back here further. And that will allow light to get through to the needles that are below. So I still want to keep all this vigor on these sacrifice branches, but I've got to clear away some of the older needles here. And the same with the one on the far side. So I'll keep, all my new needles there, and all these older ones that are further back on the branch, they'll be stripped off. Also any buds forming in this area, because I want light to get down to the branches underneath. I don't want this, big leader that blocks all the light to the tree. I pruned the branches and needles away from my sacrifice leader here. So you can see I've stripped all the buds and the branches off this part of it. So the only part that can block the light to get down below is this end, which has lots of needles, so it should grow with a lot of intensity this year. I've got 3 good buds up there in the apex. So yeah, the idea of this is just to thicken it up, grow really vigorous, thicken up my trunk, and then they'll get pruned off in the future. So here's my other sacrifice leader. So I'll be stripping all these buds off it and the lower needles on it, just keeping it tough up the top here. Yeah, and they'll get pruned off. I don't know when. I'm going to wait until, I get some good thickening in the trunk. I'll wait until these get quite thick actually, and then they'll get pruned off. So I'm thinking these leaders will stay on probably maybe even 5 years. We'll see how it goes. Here's a look at a branch that I've needle thinned. So this one right here. So you can see, you can see the branch structure. You can see just the needles at the tips of the branches. If you come around here to ones that aren't needle thin, they're just a dense mass of long needles. So that will get thinned out just like I did on this branch. So it's similar. If you were to wire the tree, this is what you do. You strip all the needles off except for a cluster at the tip, and then you have access to the branches to wire them. I won't be wiring it. I'm doing clip and grow on this pine. I have lots more thinning to go, so I'll work away and we'll come back in a while and see how the tree's looking. Another amount of time has passed. I have no idea how much, but here's a look. You can start to see the structure in the upper part of the tree now, which is really nice. And the more I'm, needle thinning, the more I'm getting a good look at the structure. So it's good to see. So you can see I've still got a lot of needle thinning in this area. It's just too dense still. But I'm making progress. It's, I'd say I probably have at least another good hour of needle thinning to go. But yeah, it's nice to see that structure in there, instead of the tree just looking like a giant bush. I have finished thinning the needles, so I've kind of got the whole tree to an even needle density. So I did a little less thinning in the lower branches, a little more in the intermediate branches, and even more in the upper branches. And I may still have a few to go once I look it over. So my next operation, I noticed that, there's a lot of shoots that shouldn't be there, that new shoots. If you look in here, right at the junction of these 2 branches in here, there's a bud coming out. So I can prune that away. That'll let more light and air in here. Yeah, I'm just going to do a general kind of thinning to some of the branches, making sure, there's not weird looking branches that, each branch has a spot of sunlight. I don't want, like here's a branch that's kind of over top of another branch. That could be thinned out. So little details like that. I'm not going to be doing a lot of pruning, just a little bit of touch-up pruning. Kind of, just sorting the structure out. Like here's one. There's a branch that divides into 2, and then there's a 3rd shoot coming on it right in there that needs to be pruned out. So just a little bit of thinning. I'm coming in now and beginning that thinning process. Yeah, there's a lot of buds in here, new buds that are, popped out of not very good places. And I'm just pruning those out now. Little shoots like that I'm just clogging up the interior of the tree and blocking light. It's so important to keep light to all these branches so they don't die back to the point where you just have foliage at the tips of them. You always want foliage in the inside of your branch so you can shorten them if you have to in the future. And you always will need to shorten them eventually. Otherwise your tree just keeps growing larger and larger. There's a weird crossing branch here I've got to prune out. The branches kind of cross each other. I've got to get rid of it. It's a new shoot. That comes out. Vertical shoot here coming off the branch. Now here's another one where I have growth in the junction of two branches. Get rid of that middle one. There's a lot of little branches in here that I'll eventually be able to prune some of these branches back to, making them more compact. But I have to let them develop a bit first. They're just kind of their first year where needles have come out of a bud. So they're not really strong enough to prune back to yet. But that'll come in the future. It's nice to have choices. I have one last operation to do to this tree today, and that is the possibility of some bud removals at the tips. I have some really vigorous candles at some of the branch tips, whereas most of my buds on the tree are very small buds. So the tree is really healthy right now, so I have the opportunity to do some tip removal on some of the branches, removing the bud off the tips. It'll back bud then, generate new buds, and I think it'll help balance the vigor on the tree. Here's an example of a longer, almost a candle or bud at the end of this branch. So I'm going to prune that off. So I'm going to take it off right here, like that. And I should get some new buds at the tip of this branch because it was super vigorous. Here's another one here. You can see this one is super vigorous. If you see the bud there. So I'm going to remove that also. Like that. So always leaving some green needles at the tip. So most of my buds aren't that strong. There's very few on the tree that are that vigorous. So I'm just going to look over the tree, inspect it, and if I see any of those big, long, vigorous buds on it, which are almost candles already, I'm going to prune them right off. So I'm just checking out here at the tip of this one, there's a vigorous bud there. I can take that out too. So here I go, taking that right off. If I left them on, they would just, develop huge candles compared to the rest of the buds on the tree. So I'm just kind of zapping the vigor out of those branch tips while I can. Here's another one that's pretty vigorous down here. I've already got a bud forming beside it, so I'm going to snip that one off. I have a few vigorous ones up on this branch, so I can take the bud off the tip here, like that. This one's fairly vigorous here too. I'm going to remove the bud on the tip of that one too, like that. Now, if your tree is weak and you do this operation, removing the buds from the tips of the branches, on a weak tree, the branch will probably just die. But on a strong tree like this, I can remove them safely and the tree will be just fine. And I'm not removing all of them, just the big, fat, juicy ones. The ones that are, really, really vigorous. Yeah, I think there's a couple more on this lowest branch I could maybe do. I don't know. They're not all that big here. This one has a double bud, so I think I will take the big fat one off. Like that. This one, I don't know. I mean, I do have buds way back, so I could take it off because I have an insurance policy back further. So even if this part of the branch were to die back, which I'm sure it won't, it has lots of needles, I have some buds back in here that I could develop that branch again. It would be no problem. There's another big fat bud at the tip. I'm going to remove that. There's another one way up here. Remove that one. See, this is sort of the normal size, just sort of it's like a little bump, the bud. Hasn't elongated like some of these. Like here's one that's quite elongated. I'm going to remove that one. There's one up here I can remove. Maybe one here. This one, that one's not big enough. There is a couple here, but I don't think they're big enough either. I think that's going to be it for total bud removal. Just the ones that were really vigorous and were extending out like almost like a candle is the ones that I removed. Okay, I think I'm quite happy with the tree. Let's have a look at the tree now. The tree is surrounded by needles, buds. I prune off branch tips. Over here I've got even more. Just lots of needles taken off today. Let's start by looking at the tree from the top, looking down, and see if it's opened it up so you can see some of the lower branches through the canopy. Here is a look at the tree when viewed from above. So you can see a lot of the branch structure now, which is really nice to see. And you can see right through the tree. I can see the ground down below between some of the branches. So a lot more light is getting to those lower branches now. It'll really, really help the health and vigor of the tree and the balance of it, which is exciting. So yeah, my sacrifice branches are up here, so ignore those. They will come off someday. And the reason I have two is I grew one initially, and then at the tip of it, in the candle, I got a pine worm in it that ate the candle and killed off the tip of the branch. And then it recovered the next year, got new buds on it, and started growing. So I decided, well, I better keep 2 leaders, kind of help thicken it up even more. So I have 2 now. So if the buds die off the one year, I have the other one that will hopefully make it. Here is a look at the tree now from the front view. You can see how it's opened up more. You can see all the branch structure. It's much, much lighter, the tree. A lot of needles still hanging off of it, but yeah, it's really opened up the structure of the tree to let light get in there. So I'll let it grow, and then in spring, the candles will elongate. I'll pinch those, and then once the new needles have come out, I'll probably remove all the older needles towards the end of summer, and I'll just be left with the new needles on the tree, which should all be a more consistent size. I think the tree will look much better. I'm stepping back now, having a look at the overall silhouette of the tree. It definitely, the trunk has some thick and thin areas in it, which aren't the greatest looking. So I'm hoping those sacrifice leaders up top will kind of beef the trunk up and kind of fill in those areas so it's a more consistent thickness. That's the goal with those sacrifice leaders. I think the overall silhouette is maybe a little wide. I could probably bring it in a bit. So I can do that once some of those shoots develop back on the branches. I can prune the branches back, kind of utilizing those back buds. I think the root base is good and the trunk's looking good. I think it just needs, definitely that trunk thickening up and evening out, and then the branches brought in a bit more. And I think that's kind of the goals for the future. And you have to ignore those sacrifice leaders up top. It'll have sort of that look to it. More of a rounded triangular style canopy, something like that. I'm making good progress on all my hardy trees, getting them pruned up over the winter. I still have a lot to go, and I think once I finish the last one, it'll be into the repotting season, so I'll be doing all the hardy trees, getting them repotted. That is all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.